Welcome, Wasteland Wanderers and Vault Dwellers alike, to a new podcast about your favorite apocalypse. So, grab your Pit Boy, stock up on Radaway, and get ready to go all out, because in this forgiving wasteland, we are all out of Stimpaks. I am Dylan. On Instagram, I am Ghoul City. I am joined by Nick and Oliver. If you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Nick from Follow True Facts, also on Instagram.
I'm Oliver, still Fallout, and I'm on everything, including Tumblr and iFunny. We won't talk about
Oh
that.
man,
Is that really an accomplishment? You want to you want to broadcast that
you're on
one?
I just want
iFunny?
to slip it through there.
People are gonna see this.
Maybe Blue Sky next. I don't know if anyone should use that.
People are gonna see this.
this is
My
this is
iFunny
your big
audience.
break on iFunny.
Finally featured.
Yeah.
So on this episode, we're going to be talking about, of course, the Fallout show. So, just as a general question, what are your guys' thoughts on the Fallout show? Where do you rate it on a scale of 10?
Yeah, so personally, I mean, honestly, I really like the show. I thought it did really well with bringing in the atmosphere from the games. I thought they did it really well. They did some things that I'm not 100% happy with. Some lore stipulations, and I mean, I presume you guys are very well opinionated, especially with the ghouls and the drugs that they have with that. And I know you guys have some opinions. NCR also huge one, but we'll be talking about that soon enough. I thought it was great. Obviously, favorite episode, the last one by far, and that was just because that the scene where in the Vault-Tec meeting room with all those people at once. I kid you not, I paused it like 5 or 6 times because I was just freaking out. The first time I watched it because I was like, oh my god, look who it is, and I was like, it was the coolest thing. I was so geeking out, but that's my thoughts. I it's really good.
You're having a little gulp shido
I
moment.
I, I
Like,
honestly
oh,
was,
look, there's
yeah.
him, there's him. He's really important.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like that one meme with what's his name? Um, where he like he's just looking at the camera kind of thing, watching the movie. But yeah,
Is that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
yeah, that's it with
Oh, that's
Leonardo
him, that's him,
DiCaprio.
that's him. That's
Yep,
me.
yep, yep, yep.
Yeah.
That's
I know
that's,
that guy.
that's how I was like, oh my god, that's so cool. But what
Yeah,
about
to
you,
be fair,
Oliver? What are you thinking?
I'm very much of a similar view where I think it's one of those things where, as best as they could translate a game series to a show, I think they did a really good job. Obviously, I know Halo fans are kind of feeling the way theirs could have been better, but that Fallout was done quite well. So it's not a fluke, not a random occurrence. They did it really well in a kind of world where translations from games have never been that great. So I really enjoyed it. I thought the vibe they really hit well, even from the first episode from kind of the cousin mating jokes. I'm just gonna that's way to kind of put it. I think that from the get go, you kind of reassured that it's not going to hide from that sort of humor. As Nick said, there were some lore bits. The ghouls being kind of zombie-ish was not a great part for me. And it's definitely things where, like, I think people mentioned it for the ghouls, little vials they have. They made it very clear what a Stimpak was, and I felt like they could have easily just taken that time to just quickly set up the vials when that same sort of energy. But I'm at the end of the day, I think it's really good, and I think it's set up to be a really good kind of future seasons as more go on.
Okay. Okay. Where would you guys put it on scale one to 10? 10 being the best thing you've ever seen in your entire life.
Best show ever, 2 out of 10. I'd probably say 8.5.
Yeah, I would.
8.5?
Yeah, I would put it around an 8, 7.5, 8. Yeah, I thought it was really good. I guess side note, did you guys like the main cast, the main characters? Do you think they were good, or what was your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, they were great. I think it had a perfect mix. I saw some people talk about it online with the different play styles. You have the ghoul who
Mm-hmm.
is very chaotic, shooting everyone. You have Lucy who doesn't know what she's doing, and then you have Maximus who's trying to be a goody two shoes.
Mm-hmm. I found myself like, oh man, like I wanted to like Maximus so much, like I really did, because it's Brotherhood of Steel is such amazing thing, and I actually enjoyed the direction they were going with the Brotherhood of Steel. I thought it was a really interesting take. Um, So I thought that was interesting. But Maximus as a character, I couldn't get behind. It just, especially like that kiss scene with like Lucy at the end. I thought that was like forced, very
Hmm.
forced. And he like, not to say he didn't deserve it, but like as a character development, I felt like it wasn't fully deserved. But
I I kind of get what you mean. I think one of my big gripes with Maximus is it felt like it wasn't his development that felt forced. It was kind of his naivety felt forced at times. Where
mm-hmm.
when he was kind of like, but basically the whole realization that like him, I was supposed to say guys, he's YouTube friendly. Him exploding from his lower regions. The fact that
Yeah.
he thought it was a condition. I found it hard to believe he didn't know what that was.
Mhm.
It's that sort of like weird forced naivety to kind of make his character seem more innocent. That at times was a bit like, but I think obviously the staple of the show and one who really carried it was Lucy as she should have.
Mhm.
And I think it was good to see that like she wasn't trying to be so embarrassed the whole time, but like kind of like your own character in the game. There's every time you get whacked and you're not gonna be killing everything. But then in time you realize that she does kind of definitely hold her own, yet tries to
Mhm.
not be a not. You don't see her becoming swayed. She still maintains just being a good person, which I quite like that.
Yeah. So with the oh, you're cutting out there a little bit.
Yeah.
Hmm?
You good? You
You're
still with
cutting out.
us?
Yeah, I didn't say anything. When you said I cut out, I just stopped talking.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it sounded like you were cutting out, but it's fine.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to bounce off with that with the Maximus is with him being part of the Brotherhood of Steel, something based off. It was intended to be based off kind of the U.S. military. You would think he would have a little bit more general knowledge about what's going on, but he seems to know as much as Lucy at times in the show. Where he just doesn't know what's going on or what something is.
Yeah, it was his character. It's weird because like I felt like they were trying to do the naive trait with Lucy and Maximus, but
Hmm.
they did it only well with Lucy and believable with Lucy because Lucy is like she's competent in everything else except surviving the wasteland because obviously she's never been out there. Maximus is just like, oh, what is this? Like it's just, I don't know. I agree. Like it doesn't feel like it adds up at times.
So, what is? I want to move on. What is your guys' favorite side character? Even if they're just there for an episode, a scene, anything, as long as they pop up and have a name.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna go with Thaddeus.
Thaddeus.
The High
Thaddeus,
Cleric. God bless the High Cleric.
the High Cleric.
Just kidding.
You don't even know this guy's name. It's just High Cleric.
Just High Cleric.
I know Hank. It's got to be
Oh.
Hank. I'm not sure.
Hank?
I don't think he counts as a side, but he's technically an antagonist. But I'm taking that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I really like Thaddeus. Thaddeus was like a really really good side character. Norm also had
Norm.
it was such a great like side story. I felt like it was so cool and oh my god, I can keep going on to this, but like the pacing of the show was also fantastic. Like the pacing was so great. Um, but I digress.
Yeah, Norm's story was very interesting because at first he was my least favorite character,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden, like episode 5 or 6, he picks up and he became the star of the show for me.
Oh yeah, no, it was fantastic. Like I felt like there's definitely a certain part in like episode I think of episode 5, like the rest of the cast like it not to say it dropped in story, but like it became a little bit less interesting. Like there was that time where it wasn't my favorite part, but Norm picked it up and that's
Oh
what
yeah.
like carried through the episode. And it was fantastic.
I thought Norm was going to turn evil. Like a couple episodes in, I thought he was getting a bit like, oh, what's he up to?
Evil Norm.
Oh really?
And then
Evil Norm.
yeah, and then he just came out to be clutch. He's just a tilt guy. I respect that.
Oh my god. I'll
It's pretty relatable.
yeah. Yeah. I would also flashbacks like peak of the show. I
Yeah,
would love to see a Fallout show or like Fallout media that is
you just
just
did.
pre-war. I think that'd be so cool just to see that.
I don't know. I think they're doing pretty good with the amount of flashbacks because I don't know. I like the mystery of not
Mm.
knowing everything, But then you also do, when you just play through the games, you do get a pretty good idea
Mm-hmm.
of what it was like before everything blew up.
No, for sure. No, for sure. I don't know. I really like 50s nostalgia. So if I saw like a show like that, 50s nostalgia, and like the build up for a Great War, I would love that so much. I think that'd be such a interesting thing. I don't know how much I'd actually watch it, like how well of a show it'd actually be, but I would love the idea of it.
I'd like it to exist, but I'd never watch it.
You just want it available.
Yeah, nice to have
Yeah.
options, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So there was with the end of the season, it is left off on that huge cliffhanger of one, California getting power, and two, Hank going to Vegas. We see Lucky 38 in the distance. We get a nice pan out of what looks like a battle happened. There's crash vertibirds. I think there was a few flags in there. I don't think we see any bodies, but we do see that Deathclaw skull, and of course Hank going towards Lucky 38. Um,
It's off to
which I think that's all
gamble.
kind of piqued our interests with with that. That kind of made people go wild online.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's quite sad, to be fair. I must admit. Like, I obviously some people, especially me, would have played New Vegas like only the other day, and then you see it kind of like screwed over, and you're like, oh, I just saved that place.
Yeah.
Just kept it alive.
Did I do
it's
that?
gone.
Did they? Whoa, did the NCR even need to do that? Was that just me?
Did I do that?
So there was a very interesting theory I did see online. It was on TikTok actually, from the creator Big Yikes 420.
Great name.
Looks like also known as Array Sky. And she had a really interesting theory that I wanted to discuss with you guys. And the theory is basically, did Hank bomb Shady Sands for Mr. House? Um, how this theory goes is, of course, the canon ending must be the Mr. House ending. Mr. House takes the dam from the NCR. Um, so with that, the NCR, probably jealous. They spend all these resources to try to take the dam for themselves. They attack. I believe there is some dialogue when you talk to Mr. House saying the NCR definitely could take Vegas. They're just going to lose hundreds of people doing it. Would they be willing to do it? Um, so with that, in this scenario, the NCR, yeah, they take the strip. Not worth it casualty wise. Um, Mr. House kind of in a last second desperation attempt, because the Vault Dwellers had Pit Boys. Robco, along with Vault Tech, developed the Pit Boys. This theory says maybe Mr. House contacted Hank, knowing his connections, um, and said, "Blow up Shady Sands, get him out of here, make them walk away from Vegas, run away, retreat, deal them a blow that's going to force them to go back home." I think that's a pretty theory.
So do you believe it then? Do you are you a believer in this theory?
Yes, just because
Oh.
in the show the Ghoul talks about a possible higher power
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
Hank is working for, and the show kind of aims that towards, oh, maybe it's just Vault Tech, which, yeah, Hank's working for them, or maybe it's the Enclave, but that higher power could have been Mr.
Mm-hmm.
House.
Oh, yourself, Nick. Are you a believer in this higher power other than Jesus?
Are you a believer in
Am I a
Mr.
believer in
House?
this higher power? So I number one, I wanted to disprove this theory so bad because I, for one, do not want Mr. House to have the ending. Um, before this, I honestly thought that the canon ending would be Independent New Vegas, and I think it's fair that majority of people would say the same, right? Um, so I tried my best to look it up, like think of different ways of how that could still be possible and why I think that Mr. House and why I think this theory isn't true. So I don't
Okay.
believe it's true, and
Let's
I
hear
do
it.
have
Let's hear
reason.
it. Let's hear this
You
evidence.
want me to go down this route? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So the theory so far with the Mr. House ending, it's a very much like a leading. Like you have to really like follow this thin line of strings to like follow it along. However, once you see that line of strings, it is difficult to divert yourself from not seeing it. And I think that's a really good case, right? So I was looking at it, I was like, okay, who else would contact Hank? Why would Hank go to New Vegas? There's no other reason. You know, why did he do the bombs and whatnot? So I don't think that necessarily Hank was contacted by Mr. House. I think he did the bombs on his own volition. I think that part that Mulder, like, I think that whole story of like him doing that, I think that was all true. So
Hmm.
that this is my theory. I think independent New Vegas, that's what happened. And I think this because if you look at it, the walls are down, chaos happens. So it either looks like battle happened or chaos happened. There was some kind of revolution, some kind of fight for power. Um, in the ending slides of New Vegas, like this is how much I'm going down. The ending
Okay.
slides
Okay.
for New Vegas, um, going down the Mr. House route. It says Mr. House continued to run New Vegas his way. Uh, a vision of pre-war glory. The streets were orderly, efficient, and cold. New Vegas continued to be the sole place in the wasteland where fortunes were won and lost in a blink of an eye. The NCR, the Securiton Army, took out the NCR and the Legion. And then for Independent, it says the strip. I'm sorry. Uh, Part of the Securiturn army was diverted to the strip to keep order. Any chaos in the streets was ended quickly. Chaos became uncertain, then accepted, with minimal loss of life. New Vegas assumed its position as an independent power in the Mojave. So I think minimal loss and like that little bit of resistance might be the cause of that. This is the straws I'm grasping at to say
Okay.
that that's not the reason. Um, Although from a writing standpoint, I really could see Mr. House showing up because they kind of teased him like in
Hmm.
that intro thing, but they also teased a bunch of other people. So, and those people aren't going to show up in it. So, I think it can go up. Um, I mean, my dead honest opinion also, like Mr. House, he ran a strict ship, right? He had his robot army on on plan. Like he had all these people going in, and like he was keeping order.
Yeah.
How I just couldn't see him not being able to keep order with the amount of robots we had. Like we saw the depot with all the Securitrons underneath
The fort. Yeah.
the fort. Yeah. So
Hmm.
like I just don't see the NCR being able to like come back in and like Mr. House having to basically contact this person from Vault Tech, which he
Yeah.
briefly is aware of, in order to back it up. I think it's just too of a stretch for me
Well,
personally.
that's with the whole, like how you said, we see a battle. The
Mm-hmm.
NCR, they get kicked out. They
Mm-hmm.
lose Hoover Dam. They're mad. They come to attack again, either using Camp McCarran as a staging ground, maybe using the monorail as a little surprise attack. But in that closing credits, we see what would be the south gate of Vegas. We see it in the opening cutscene of New Vegas, but it's later cut. You don't see it unless you're using mods.
Yeah.
Um, you see that blown open. And who do we know has access to maybe artillery like that? Well, there's
Yeah.
the NCR and boomers. That's my little rebuttal.
That's your rebuttal. That's your rebuttal. What
Yeah.
about you, Oliver? What's your thoughts on all this? Where's your head
I I don't believe the theory myself.
at? Okay.
I think, to be
Mm-hmm.
fair, I think it's a great theory, and I think I like theories. There's a lot of backing to it. Although there's no mention of Dunwich, so obviously we know it's not true. No, but essentially, I think my biggest issue with the theory. So one little bit is that Mr. House knew about the monorail. I'm pretty sure there's a whole bit how he says he'll improve the monorail, he'll fix it. So he clearly is aware of it. So the idea he'd be surprised for an attack that way doesn't make any sense. He'd clearly be guarding and doing something with it. So there's no way he could be attacked from that and not be aware of its existence, because it goes straight into an NCR camp. So there's no way he wouldn't watch that area and keep an eye on that. So maybe they could still use it as a launching ground, but I'm certain he'd be able to disable or stop it before that happened. But regardless, it's kind of a spare point. But I think ultimately Mr. House was not very pro Vault-Tec. At the end of the day, their business. He made them the Pip-Boy as a partnership. It wasn't. I don't see it as kind of a big connection enough to kind of have interactions with them. I'm very much of the theory anyway that the higher power he's referring to is Enclave based. They've a lot of connections with Vault-Tec regarding kind of what basically it's a long-standing connection between them to the fact that a lot of people believe the Enclave fully like push for what the Vault-Tec were doing as part of their largest plans. So I think they're probably the high power, or maybe Vault Zero, maybe Tactics is going to come into play a little bit here. We've gotten hints that it's not non-canon anymore. So who knows what the high power could just be another Vault-Tec site. But then as a little side note, in terms of we're thinking about if we're thinking Vault-Tec need that kind of push, is that in Fallout 76, the Overseer's instructions were secure the nukes, take out anyone who gets in your way. So Vault-Tec were instructing the Overseer to secure the nukes. So Vault-Tec already had a preference or an aim to get hold of a nuclear arsenal. So they didn't need a push, I don't think, to destroy a settlement or to get rid of anything that could be a rising threat to them, because they already were after nukes and to get hold of them to secure themselves. So it just seemed natural anyway that Hank would get rid of a rising settlement because they were a threat to Vault-Tec realistically. And I think his hot wife going there was just a motivation. I think also one thing a lot of people forget about is that we're talking about kind of it being a strategic place for the house to hit. That wasn't the capital of the NCR anymore. It was the first capital, but it was no longer their capital anymore. So again, why this, which is a really off thing, they just mention it on the site saying first capital of the NCR. So again, if Mr. House is going to strategically target somewhere, it doesn't make any sense why he would hit an old capital rather than their new base.
That makes sense. Do you think maybe you brought up a good point with the Enclave? Do you think it's a Remember Navarro kind of situation where you hit our home, we're hitting your home, and it's more of a symbolic attack rather than a legitimate military attack?
Yeah, so as I said, I kind of put two explanations into one, admittedly. So kind of saying Vault-Tec might have done it their own volition, but they might have also done it as an Enclave directive. But we know Enclave have access to things like orbital systems and things like that. So having nuclear capabilities is not a shocking thing. And maybe they just need the time to reconnect with the systems that they lost. So, and perhaps Shady Sands, the reason why that was targeted is because realistically that's probably closer to anything the Enclave has. Because the Enclave are very much on the coast, and I imagine Shady Sands is closer to the coast. Forgive my geography if it's completely off. Then something probably more east, which is probably where the new NCR settlement or headquarters are. Because I can only imagine they move more eastward, probably closer towards the Mojave anyway. Based on the Battle and the Destruction, it's clear in some form the NCR went back, because there's no reason why there'd be a crash vertibird, because we never saw that level of destruction in the game. So it's clear they went back in some capacity for some reason. And whether it's some mutually assured destruction or something like that, that kind of knocked them out. Or maybe maybe Mr. House slipped offline and something happened. His tech is old, so it's not surprising it failed at one point. He lost connection to his Securitrons and he got overrun. And Securitrons in their last directive managed to hold off the attack and wipe out the NCR, but then the systems just crumbled and there's nothing left. So there's lots of kind of bits and pieces going around, but I wouldn't say it's enough reason to suggest that the NCR were doing such damage that Mr. House retaliated, because I think it's more than likely he kind of just, if he did win, he's probably just slipped offline.
Yeah, I do believe Mr. House says within the first 15 years of the war, because he had to put his system, there was so much pressure on his system that he went into a coma for 15 years, I want to say. So that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, also my thing is, why is the NCR reattacking at the Strip, right? He's going straight to New Vegas, because wouldn't they really only want in the Mojave? Don't they really only necessarily want the Hoover Dam, right?
Yeah,
but then they find Helios 1 along the way too.
Yeah, but also Mr. House wants the Hoover Dam running for power directed towards the Strip, and likely would have stopped. And he's likely got forces there to stop them taking it back. So you may as well hit the source to try and knock him offline. That's could be what the
Yeah.
NCR did. You don't know. Like EMPs are a thing in Fallout. So all it would
Yeah,
have
that's
taken
true.
realistically is some sort of like EM blasts, like fried everything there because it looks quite dead. Like Hoover Dam is perpetually running. It's essentially it runs on like hydroelectric energy. So the idea of this trip is so quiet. There's no like neon lights going.
Mhm.
So just maybe it's something EM based. Just fried everything, knocked offline. And maybe the Crash Vertibird is just that got affected. Like there's maybe like one blast, all this machinery went down, and they just left it. Like as a FU realistically to house.
So, do you think Mr. House is still alive in this canon version of the Fallout TV show? Then
I think so.
I think so.
He's a survivor.
Why would
Just-
Hank?
Just
Why would Hank be going there?
crumpled up in some tuna cans.
I like the theory, and this is way out there, and I don't know if it's true
Okay.
or not. But I just because I really don't want Mr. House to have the canon ending, I like the idea that Bud was like, hey, and like just some off topic was brought up, like, hey, there's this guy out in old Las Vegas. That used to runs Las Vegas. He's New Vegas, Robert House, and he goes there under the understanding that he's still alive, and the show does like a fake out whenever Hank shows up in like in the tops, and the screen turns on, but instead of Robert House, it's Yes Man that blinks on. I think that'd be so great, so funny. But whether or not I see it happening, that's not. I mean, from a writing standpoint, I do think that we haven't seen the last of Mr. House. They definitely put that cameo in that sequence for a reason.
Mhm.
So
Another thing we see in that pan out. What do you think killed a Deathclaw from the Mojave? What's out there that
His
can kill a Deathclaw?
his gambling debts. He couldn't take it anymore.
So with the I wanted to rebuttal off the Yes Man thing.
oh god, okay.
If we do see Yes Man in the show, antagonist or protagonist?
It's protagonist.
Protagonist.
Protagonist?
He
So-
has to be a protagonist.
So I feel like I know which avenue you're going down, which is the kind of his like I'm gonna go become more assertive. But I'm pretty certain the creators came out and said that don't misinterpret that as him becoming evil. He's just trying to make it so no one can just control him anymore. But he's not going to become some dictator. So they actually clarified that, saying don't, because I took that as him. Remember he said that in the ending. I was like, what have I done? Like this doesn't sound good. But they're like, no, it's just because he's Yes Man, and that became a problem in the end. Where like realistically, even when he's helping you, if someone asked him to do something, he would have just done it. So he's just going to make him a little more kind of foolproof against people just making him do things other than you. But I think he'll be a friend.
You think
Totally.
so?
Although,
yeah.
although to be fair, that's a good point. Is that if he did become assertive, then he wouldn't answer anyone. So maybe the courier is going to make a cameo because he's only going to answer to the courier.
I don't think the Courier's coming back in this.
No. I think there will be a mention of like they will reference, no, they won't say the courier, but they will like mention some person, like even if it's Mr. House at the end, like they will mention the courier at some point during season 2.
What if he's played by Ron Perlman?
Oh my god, that'd be so
Some
cool.
old Courier.
I think that's a way to make it. Like I'd forgive like bringing back
Oh
a
my
protagonist
God.
if it was Ron Perlman, because I don't know, I can kind of see
Oh.
him playing the courier. Like
God, that'd be so cool.
yeah, now you're swayed. Now you look more like oh my God.
No, I think it's just because I want to see Ron Perlman in the TV show. That's the only reason. Like I can see. Here's my issue. Like I don't want I don't want Mr. House's ending to be canon. I don't want that to happen. However, from a writing standpoint, do I think it is possible that it's Mr. House? Yeah, I really do. Do I want to believe it? No. And do I think it makes total sense? I'm not sold, but I can see him coming back just because they've built him up for it. Or a psych out, like I said, because I think that Yes Man psych out would be so funny.
Hank finds the He gets to Lucky 38. He finds the tube. There's just like a shriveled hot dog in there. It's been left out in the sun for too long.
Staying in a tanning bed, yeah, essentially.
I think as well, like the whole him kind of go like, why did he go that way? I'm thinking, well, it would not surprise me. Mr. House was quite confident, and I wouldn't be surprised. We're saying about him like maybe messaging on the Pip Boy, but I wouldn't be surprised if he almost sent a message to Voltec being like, "You guys are stupid. Like I'm living forever. You guys can go sit in your holes in the ground." Like
I'm better
I'm,
than you.
I'm surprised if he literally in that meeting he literally says something along the lines of, "You guys can go f off down your holes, and I'm literally gonna go cry myself for a little bit. Like you have fun." And
Well, he lets them buy space on the strip for Vault 21.
yeah,
Mhm.
Like fills it with concrete, but
but so like Hank, I think Hank's obviously going there. I think it's more knowing of the fact because obviously he was unfrozen, so he likely younger in his young years potentially knew of they probably knew of Mr. House and what he was up to. So they probably knew that he was up to something, crying himself. So he's probably assuming, look, some smart, probably rich guy who happens to still be around. Maybe he's hoping he can relate to him, or I'm just throwing stones here.
No, I agree. I definitely I don't believe the part of the theory for 100% that Mr. House told Hank to blow up Shady Sands. I like that's the part I don't think makes sense to me because just a reach out to a random essentially it's a random person, lower level employee of Voltec, right? Like that's no one to Mr. House. So I feel like that part of the theory is what trips it up for me.
well, Mr. House did take on the Courier, just a lowly Courier. He
Yeah,
brings them all the way up, promotes them.
yeah, but that was because he had something he needed, right? Like he had something he had to grab. He had a task. This is some I I just feel like it doesn't make any sense. And then, like what
I
Oliver
see what
said,
you're
like
saying. I
it's
see
not
what you're
it's
saying.
yeah, and plus Oliver, as Oliver said, that's not the current capital of the NCR. Like sure, it could have some sentimental value to, you know, the nation, right? Because it's the original capital.
Hmm.
But I mean, at the same time, I don't. It's weird.
Yeah, I get what you're saying because thinking about it, what you said with the Courier had something he wanted. Mr. House is a very transactional person. He's not a
Exactly, yeah.
very charitable person. So if Hank flies up to Mr. House going, "Please, please, please let me in, let me in, let me in," Mr. House is gonna be like, I don't care about you. Get out of here. You have
Do where
nothing I could want."
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So,
Okay. I
we'll see.
see now. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
definitely a hole in the theory, but still pretty interesting theory. It's just something to think about.
It is for sure. Oh, go ahead.
No, yeah.
Okay. Um, no, and the thing is
As I was
about like
saying, so I think it's important.
what a dick. I I can't even with you. Um, so I like the end part of the theory. The beginning is what trips it up for me. Now you can go
Hmm.
all over.
Yay. I do want to put out there. Obviously, it's sometimes theories get thrown out there and they're like the dumbest things I've ever seen. So I will kind of put credits out there to the original creators, obviously saying, like, obviously which tear into it because which kind of giving counter theories, things like that. I'm not going to say it's a bad theory at all. So don't obviously if you're watching this thinking we're just ripping it apart and thinking it's awful, we just being kind of devil's advocate and kind of challenging it a little bit. But overall, in terms of as far as theories go, it's definitely one of the more thought out ones. I've seen a few different theories for the kind of who the top power is, and I've seen some really terrible ones. But it's definitely up there in terms of the theories I've seen. Like I first heard it, I was like, actually, I can't see where they're coming from.
Yeah.
But it's only full thinking. I
So,
was like,
same. Like I had to actually like think about it, and I started writing down notes. I was like, okay, so this is how you can start like picking it apart. But it's like at face value, it's it's a really good it's a pretty good theory in my opinion.
Okay, so if you guys want to move on with the theories,
no.
we can talk about this one, or we can move it to a different episode. What do you guys? What I know Nick kind of talked about it a little bit. What do you guys think caused the strip to be blown up? Because it's blown up, it's ruined. War.
They tried to out pizza the Hut.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a terrible joke.
You didn't say Dunwich. I'm very proud of you for that
Thank you.
self-control.
Actually, because unspoken.
I really think I think it was more or less um it just been battle over the time. Like I think it could have been like NCR like just coming back or like some remnants of like the Caesar like the Legion, right? Like it could have been like some outside force trying to do that. I mean, granted, the Legion doesn't really have the power or explosives to do it, but like it could be something along those lines. But I don't think it was a full frontal attack from the NCR. If anything, it was like little resistance or uh like little small attacks, little skirmishes kind of thing.
I think one of the things we do see in there, though, we see a crashed vertibird that has NCR on it.
Mm-hmm.
At least it looks like a vertibird. Um, now I'll send a quick little screenshot to
I
get
think
you guys'
President is
opinion.
that bad.
So if it was a small little skirmish, and the NCR does not have a lot of vertibirds, I'm not sending my only vertibird.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's always I don't know. There's no, that's a good point. Good point. I like that. I like that. There's always like I mean, sure the NCR doesn't have a lot of them, right? But there's still a part where
Mm-hmm.
they might just have Camp McCarran. There might be like a few more just not necessarily lying around, but like one or so just haven't fully left off. Like it could have been honestly, it could have been whenever NCR was like pulling out like whenever they lost Battle of Hoover Dam, right? And they were told to like
Mm-hmm.
leave out. And maybe there was a little bit of resistance from the NCR, like when they tried to fight back from Camp McCarran, so like that. And as they were trying to leave again, like like the security drone just brought it down. Like it could have been something like that. I don't necessarily think it was a full frontal attack again by the NCR though.
Yeah, because the Mark II Securitrons, I believe they do have missile launchers
Mm-hmm.
on
Mm-hmm.
their little shoulder things.
Mm-hmm.
But we can move on from that. We can save that for a more in-depth future conversation. The other thing I had here that I wanted to talk on, and this could be a little controversial. I know it's gonna stir something up, but on the chalkboard of Vault 4, we see Fall of NCR 2277. And I know from my personal experience, those who follow me on Instagram could see me throwing a little temper tantrum on my Instagram story, going, "It's over! It's over! We lost! It's over! They ruined everything." Todd did clarify later. Nukes didn't drop until after the events of Fallout New Vegas. So,
Mm-hmm.
what do you guys think fall meant?
It's autumn time.
Do you want to go first, Oliver?
I'd love to. No,
Yeah.
So I had the same reaction. Realistically, like I was watching it, the moment I saw it, but I must have been like the dates are wrong. I think most people even knew like, but the dates were immediately like, no, those dates don't.
Mm-hmm.
Something ain't mathing. But I think realistically that because I'm smart like that, I immediately no joking. So it was obviously I did wait for that confirmation, but I knew they wouldn't make such a mistake because it's such a simple mistake. I think so. I think what happened was it remind me of the year, wasn't it? It was 2277.
Yeah, 2277.
Mm-hmm.
Was when they say that the nukes dropped. So obviously that's the first battle of Hoover Dam that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously my personal theory is that, as we know, they clutched that war, or they clutched that battle real hard. They only won because of deception at Boulder City, and that's like a last ditch attempt. They're basically like booby trapping the city. So I think it's basically quite reasonable that they threw so much into it that there's already getting some dissonance back home, and that maybe the funding source realistically is what was coming from Shady Sands. Questions being pulled in, then the city starts to fall a little apart, and basically it's not just a city-based thing of kind of Shady Sands falling, but more that region was just not becoming as prosperous. Maybe just basically they sapped all the money they could out of it, or just as a region they couldn't withhold it anymore or hold it anymore. So it wasn't just the city that fell. Maybe a whole region of NCR had to move closer towards New Vegas to actually help back up the second or second battle that happened, because we do notice a very large NCR presence in New Vegas, despite the fact they come so far. So maybe they just literally just said, we're kind of dropping the importance of this place and just shifted their front a bit more east to kind of support their efforts in the Mojave. And so the fall is actually just more of a loss of interest or just kind of a loss in prosperity. And it's more them just shifting focus to kind of be more kind of front facing into the wall to take take Hoover Dam.
Yeah, yeah, I, I,
Peace.
I see what you're saying with that.
For sure.
I'm just
For sure.
looking at a quick little map, actually, of the settlements, and I could definitely see if they're focusing everything south and towards the east, that definitely leaves out all their northern settlements, which they have a handful of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think
I
so.
I think it's. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I've just been a pig for time. But I was going to say, just on top of that, it's interesting that the Brotherhood of Steel are still around, but they're basically being kind of hammered by the kind of
Mm-hmm.
by what we hear in New Vegas. So perhaps what's happening is as they're pulling out and like shifting their focus forward, the Brotherhood back west were starting to get some reprieve. Yeah, sure, the Brotherhood was still, or the NCR still breached their bunkers and fighting them, but perhaps that was obviously the fall was more lost Shady Sands, but they were still gradually moving up. And then by the events of Fallout 4, when we do hear they're reconnecting the East Coast again, is actually the NCR shift more east gradually. It's lowered the pressure on the Brotherhood of Steel's Western Front, because we didn't hear them really winning any victories. They just started surviving. So maybe the NCR
Mm-hmm.
were just gradually shifting forward, starting in Shady Sands. And then by the time Fallout 4, the NCR just shifted their front, which is why the Brotherhood of Steel were actually able to propagate and survive enough that they do have a presence now, which they were basically close to being wiped out before.
So do you think so where do you think the NCR is right now? You think they're switching over to like they're migrating over to the east? Is that what you think you're that like they're slowly their idea is?
So if we, so Van Buren was a cancelled Fallout game for those who are watching who don't know. It was
Mhm.
basically going to be the third Fallout 4 Interplay sold it off, and one of the key events of that game is essentially around the fact that Shady Sands got destroyed, and so they were basically forced to move east. And one of the places they went to is Hoover Dam. So the show, it's a slightly twisted kind of turn, like the way it's happened, but it's generally the same story of kind of things didn't go very well back, kind of more towards west, but and as a result they started shifting their front just more towards what was more prosperous and which was going to give them some hope, which was Hoover Dam, the unlimited energy. Like having that would basically save them as a nation from kind of the hits they take in the War Brothers deal, the kind of the loss of the backing of gold. They'd taken quite a few blows in their previous conflicts, so having something like the dam would basically was one of the last hopes to really kind of reassert themselves. So I do think maybe you don't see them in the show, but I do think they're much more east now, and which is why we don't see
Mm.
much presence in the TV show anymore. Is because they have largely probably just moved west. No, moved east. Sorry, to kind of be like this region's just getting too much. We're moving towards something like the Hoover Dam, just trying to get out of Dodge, especially then the Brothers Steel then re-establish themselves. They likely just try to get away from that rather than face any further challenge.
Interesting. Interesting. I think the NCR really has outgrown itself.
Mm.
It's funny how how they face the Legion, which is basically like a rip off, sorry, of like the Roman Empire, right? And how the NCR on the other side is a you can draw some very good parallels to the slow fall of the NCR and that of the Roman Empire. You see the corruption itself, you see the NCR, and you hear from like the soldiers itself, them like they're stretched too thin, like they have too much territory. There's too many battles going on. Um, and I think what and not necessarily what I hope to see, but I think what might be the case is we're going to see necessarily the collapse of the NCR, and the NCR is basically going to become more or less like city states. Like you have like different regions and territories begin to form out of what the NCR used to be. I could see happening.
Yeah, no, I think Dr. Hildren and Chief Hanlon kind of say the same exact thing. That's why Hanlon is doing what he's doing in New Vegas, because he doesn't want to he doesn't care about Hoover Dam. Too many people are dying over Hoover Dam.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing all this fighting for such a small strip of land. We need to go back home. And then Dr. Hildren uh, makes you go to Vault 22 to grab the research from there, because they're 10 years away from a famine, having no food.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think they stretched themselves way too thin, and this is you start seeing the start of the collapse of it. And they at this point, if they, I mean, they lost the Battle of the Hoover Dam by, I mean, if it's either Independent or Mr. House, like either way, NCR loses the Battle of Hoover Dam, and
Hmm.
it was just the biggest devastating blow, and they're just going down.
And then another thing with the NCR is they, like how Oliver was saying, they move more towards the east. A lot of their settlements are in Southern California. You have Dayglow, The Glow, Boneyard, Hub,
Mhm.
uh, Junktown, Necropolis are all kind of down there. And if they start moving east, then you have the other NCR settlements such as Redding, who are way almost in Oregon, and they're gonna say, you guys don't care about us anymore. We're gonna leave the NCR." So that call could actually be, or the fall could actually be fracturing of the
Mhm.
states that were established in the NCR. They declare independence, they leave, they just stop supporting after the Battle of Hoover Dam.
Mhm. No, yeah. I think, I mean, as sad as to say, because NTR is my favorite faction, but
Yeah,
I mean, as sad as to say, I think it is. I think that's the story that is going to be happening, but we will see. I would love to see them just moving east, Oliver. I would love to see that theory playing out.
Yeah, I was the show disappointed me with how the NCR were, just because after the Fallout New Vegas game, and obviously seeing them in that, hearing about the Brotherhood of Steel fearing them because obviously their attitude was is that with Enclave tech, they said they didn't trust them. So
Mhm.
I very much saw the idea that moving forward, especially them started utilizing things like vertibirds, which on the West Coast is a predominantly Enclave tech. Like that's not really something the
hmm
Brotherhood of Steel just have. So
Mhm.
then things like that, the fact that they started utilizing power armor, even in kind of a salvage form, but there is a power armor using soldier in the NCR, like a full blown power armor suit, which is suggesting either he's trained or they managed to figure out how to use these things. So I really saw them having the numbers and the kind of the technology to make them like pretty much unstoppable. But then what I find quite interesting, as you say about the Roman thing, is no matter how technologically advanced you are to your neighbors, if you can't, if you crumble within, then
Mhm.
it doesn't really matter how powerful you are to your enemies, is because you're just going to fall apart. And then, like the Romans, the outsiders will pick you apart.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And I think I I really see a parallel happening with them, and as sad as it is to say, I think that is maybe what has happened to the NCR is that.
I think just going into the NCR and season two speculation of the NCR, that is a very, very deep rabbit hole that we
Yeah.
could go down. Um, no, it could be second episode kind of rabbit hole we go down. Um, if that's something you guys would want to do,
No, not really.
no, okay, you want
No.
Dunwich. I know you want Dunwich.
Yeah, just say the word. Just say the Dunwich word.
I'm not saying it. I'm not saying
Say it. Say
Yeah.
it. Say it 3 times and I'll appear.
it. You say
We won't shut
Dunwich
up
three
about it.
times in your mirror. Oliver pops up right behind you.
What word?
Uh-oh.
Almost. Almost
Uh,
got him.
Oh
the
god.
south western location in the Fallout 3 map, office building.
uh, yeah. Mining family. Um, but so you asking if we want to more dive into and the NCR and what happened to it?
Yeah,
Is that the
if
question?
if if I mean, if that's what you guys want to do, I'm totally down for that. And if that's what the people watching want us to do,
The
um,
people.
we can leave it up to them. It can either be the rabbit hole of the current state or possible state of the NCR, or it could be Dunwich.
Oh, I'm so glad you
We'll
asked.
leave it
So
up to a vote.
Dunwich is like an occultic bit of lore. There's so much gone about it. So if you
Oh,
want
you
to see,
said it the third
if you
time.
want to see, if you want to see like, you want to see like occultic ghoul god paranormal lore discussion, then say that in the comments.
If you
Or NCR.
want NCR, say NCR, no Dunwich,
Dunwich.
or
in the comments.
Or you know what? I'll throw a third one in there for more chaos. How about we do what happened to the Brotherhood of Steel? So
Ooh.
what are they doing in the TV show? Like why are they cult like? And to rile you in, Oliver,
Okay.
Pridwin. What's that doing in what's that doing
Ooh.
against you? Is Arthur Maxton now in charge? Is that why he's turning into more of a cult like thing?
Just steal the prep. Okay, that's fine. This for our
I do
sakes.
believe they did say that one
Uh,
of those blimps are the Pridwin.
it yeah, Oliver pointed it out. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Don't get the credit you deserve, though.
No.
No.
Also,
Good
to clarify, it isn't one of the blimps. It's the blimp.
The blimp, sorry.
I'm sorry. The blimp.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Again, we're all out of Stimpaks. Hopefully, a following episode coming up soon. And we'll leave it to you guys if you guys want to do NCR, Dunwich, or Brotherhood of Steel.